Robots and automation are becoming more mainstream today, and so many people are starting to ask the question, will my job be replaced? I'm going to answer that for you here in this video. I'm going to show you the entire spectrum. The first thing I want to get into is the underlying issue. Why are we seeing more jobs being replaced and robotics and automation becoming more mainstream? The second thing is what type of jobs. So when you look at it, there are some that are going to be replaced sooner rather than others. I'll show you that. And the third thing, is this really realistic? Is this pie in the sky? Are we just dreaming science fiction? Or is this reality and happening faster than you can ever believe? I'll show you this today. Please stick with me. You don't want to miss it. Let's begin. If you were here on this channel or simply looking around, during 2020, we saw this huge phenomenon, and that was every store seemed to have a help wanted sign in the window, yet they could never fill the void. They couldn't fill that gap. They couldn't bring enough workers in, and still today that seems to be an issue because there are millions, literally millions in the United States alone of empty positions. Take a look. Stay for pay. Companies offer big raises to retain workers. They're having to up their salaries or give them some sort of incentive to stick around because they cannot afford to lose them. They really can't run their business. Recent record high wage gains for workers who remain in their jobs are a factor contributing to inflation. So it's not just the Wall Street Journal saying this, but we've seen Christine Lagarde telling you that it's your fault because you got a raise that inflation is hot. Okay, that's besides the point. So this is the issue that we see right now today, where the situation remains critical for a lot of these industries. They don't have enough people. Can the new AI tool, ChatGPT, replace human work? Well, this is the one that's been making news recently. Everybody's making videos about it. Everybody's talking about it. Articles written all over the place. What is ChatGPT? What is OpenAI? Well, essentially, it works kind of just like a person would. You ask it for some information and it gives that to you. It works a little bit different than, for instance, a Google search engine, where you would give it a prompt, give it a question, and it would output different websites. And if it's going to find an answer for you, really what it's doing is reading that information from a website and bringing it to you. The difference here is that this can actually mold it in a way that's written in English. And it does it well. You could change the tone. You could do anything you want for the most part. It's not always accurate. It's still in beta. It has a lot of issues. But this represents a big shift where we're not only just talking about major corporations or maybe some tech startups that are getting into this technology. We are actually now a leap beyond that. And average people can simply just type in a sentence, give it a prompt, and it will output that information for you. So we have entered into a new phase. And this really shows us that there is big concern for many jobs because it's not slow and steady. This is the point that people need to realize. We're not going from trains to cars. This isn't the way it works where now you need to build the infrastructure. You got to build the roads. You got to have the street signs. You got to have all these things. It's happening at such a rapid pace that people cannot go back to school and they can't do this. It's not happening over a generation or two. It's happening in a matter of a very short period. In fact, the founder of OpenAI just put on Twitter saying what you saw in 2022 is going to look like nothing compared to what we are going to do in 2023. So that should tell you something. Pay close attention. I'm going to show you some serious stuff today. Now let's break it down. Let me show you this. You remember Flippy the robot? Some people thought I was making a joke. Yeah, that's a funny name, but that's literally what it's called. Flippy the robot. This happens to be at White Castle, but other places are doing the same thing. I hope you can see that. So essentially what it does, you could see Flippy team member number 1, Chicago, It's flipping the fries. It can do the fries and the burgers. It's $30,000 based on what I've seen. 30 grand, it replaces 2 people. How do you feel about that? Do you think that more fast food companies are going to try their best to say, okay, you don't want 15 bucks an hour? Okay, what about 17 bucks an hour? What about 18? No? All right, we're just gonna buy Flippy the robot. Now, yes, you'd still need a human there. It's not full replacement. Like, we have to understand this. Where we are at today is not 100% replacement of the humans. However, we're moving in that direction. That's the point. We see the leaps and bounds that are happening. Chipotle is moving its tortilla robot to a real restaurant. Guess what Chipotle's chip making robot is called? Do you know? Does anybody know? I've covered this before on the channel. Yes, that's right. It's called Chippy the robot. So you got Flippy the robot and there's Chippy the robot. And there's probably some other ones out there too, okay? Now this is a real thing. So you don't need a person to sit there and make these things. You push one button and it's automated. In fact, they say the chain is also piloting AI that tells kitchen staff what to cook. So now the robots are telling the people what to make. Interesting, right? What about this? Meet the army of robots coming to fill in for scarce workers. This is when it starts to get real. Robots are spreading at a rapid pace from their traditional strongholds, like making automobiles, into nearly every other human endeavor. And I believe that companies like Amazon are trying to go as much as possible, all the way to 100% automation robots. If you've ever seen, I mean, it's crazy to see their factory, their fulfillment center. If you go to a search engine and type in Amazon robots, you'll probably be able to get it. And it's like a bunch of robot vacuums. It looks like it picks up the shelf. It brings the entire thing to the one worker, and all the worker has to do is grab and put it in the box. Grab, put it in the box. He doesn't move from where he is. He just stands there in one spot. How long is it gonna be before we can have a robot that simply grabs and puts it into the box, and then it goes into a truck that's driven autonomously that delivers it to where it needs to be? It's only a matter of time. So if we are just staring here wondering, you know what, I wonder how long it's gonna take for my job to be replaced, we're going to be replaced. Do you get it? We need to be smarter about this. I'll bring you some more information, okay? It's not all looking down, okay? We can leverage this. SoftBank deal values food startup Zoom at $2.25 billion. These aren't small rinky-dink companies, okay? This is just showing us that he's making a pizza in this case. That's, to me, this is something that could be deployed in many areas. Now, by the way, you might be able to have restaurants that are operating 24/7. Maybe it's just takeout only, right? But now you can have 24/7. So that may increase your revenue substantially. You don't have an employee. He's not working a 2 a.m. shift, but if somebody goes to the club and then comes after once, oh, I'm dying for some pizza, he can get that freshly made by a robot, all perfect, exactly identical 100% of the time. Robots versus fatbergs. High-tech approaches to America's sewer problem. Cash-strapped U.S. cities are turning to drones, artificial intelligence, and other innovations to help inspect and fix the country's aging underground arteries of waste. You see what's going on here? They're now using this to resolve problems. Again, going back to the first issue, they don't have the money. We can't pay the person. We're going to pay a robot. Do you see what's happening with inflation? Do you see this? Inflation going too high, we have the solution. I show you this all the time. I don't see others making these connections out there, and I wish they would. I wish they would, but they're not. It's all in silos. Every video is like a silo. No, it's all connected. Please understand the central banks and what they do. This is intentional. A robot that can build this $10,000 house within 12 hours. It's just showing you that all I'm trying to say is not just food. It's not just Amazon robots. It can be done on so many different levels. Yeah, it's going to take a while. You can't do the electrical yet. There's things you can't do, obviously. But is there going to be a time when the electrical wires could be run by a robot? Possible. Possible. I'm sure it'll run into many snags. But could they do the bricklaying? Yes, they could. Could they do painting? Probably. There's different things, right, that it can do first. And then one step at a time, they're figuring it out. They're going for it. They're pouring billions of dollars into it. So it's only a matter of time. For rent, 327 square foot apartment with 5 rooms thanks to robot furniture. So this is kind of a different aspect of robots. You're seeing it here for yourself. Interesting, right? Now, we got farming robot kills 200,000 weeds per hour with lasers. Now, you might be thinking, okay, 200,000 weeds, what does that all mean? Well, look at the comparison. A person can weed about 1 acre of crops a day. This smart robot can weed 2 acres per hour. What do you think, agribusiness or even, a medium-sized farmer is going to do? Are they going to say, okay, we're just going to hire a bunch of guys to go out there into the fields and pick and weed, or I can invest in this robot and it'll do a much faster job, and I don't have an issue with that. If they're, if they have the capital to invest, of course they're going to go in this direction. This is the way it works. Farming is one of those, we'll talk about it in the breakdown section, that has been automated more and more over the years. And speaking of farming, futuristic vertical farming startups are struggling in the tech downturn. I really have a lot of hope that these will do better in the future. There's App Harvest. There's a few in here, so many that they talk about. Plenty, Unlimited, looking at that. So many that I had remembered previously. Some of them really fantastic ideas, in fact, doing well. But because of the whole tech thing, they can't get their capital. They can't get the capital to come in, and that's when it hits them. Because right now it's all about growth, it's all about learning. They're spending a lot of money. Yes, they're delivering to the customers, but they're really just spending a lot. If they don't have that capital because of higher interest rates, these businesses can't do well. I understand the downsides of this, I get it, but we're in a crisis. We are literally in a food crisis. And if we don't resolve that by some means, look, I don't know about you, I don't want to eat the bugs, okay? You might want to eat the bugs and you might want to do whatever the World Economic Forum has in store for you, but I think we've got a lot of empty places like Sears, JCPenney, all the other retailers, big places that can house a lot of these things and potentially do somewhat of a good thing for the community around it, buying actual locally available produce. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? And then we get to this. Foxconn replaces 60,000 factory workers with robots. This is happening. In fact, this is back in 2016. I just showed you this example because that's Foxconn. You look at that. They're doing it. They're doing it. Now it's a factory worker, but it's happening. Companies can hire a virtual person. I don't know. I think the word person should be in quotes anyway, for about $14,000 a year in China. So I'm just trying to show you, this is kind of an oddball, but you can see what's going on. Very diverse set of things that are going on today, a lot of that. And then this just basically says, on the 100th anniversary of, quote, robot, they're finally taking over. So, that term robot was apparently 100 years ago. You look at that and you see how much more dominant they've become. Everything today seems to be based around some sort of level of robotics or automation. I've covered it many times before. The robo-advisors in the financial industry and many other things. Robots and automation have the potential to replace certain jobs over time. The jobs that are most likely to be replaced by robots and automation are those that are repetitive, predictable, and do not require a high level of social interaction or critical thinking. Some examples of jobs that may be at risk of being replaced by robots and automation include assembly line workers, fast food workers, and data entry clerks. On the other hand, there are certain jobs that are very difficult to be replaced, particularly those that require a high level of creativity, emotional intelligence, and social interaction. Companies will likely put the most attention on the ones easier to accomplish first. An example of a job that used to require a lot of labor but is now being done by robots is farming. In the past, farming was a labor-intensive job that required a lot of manual work, such as planting, watering, and harvesting crops. However, with the advent of modern farming technologies such as precision agriculture and autonomous tractors, many of these tasks can now be done by robots, reducing the need for human labor. And you might say to yourself, I don't want to be a farmer, but the way it goes, the way it is today, it's that jobs on all levels are going away. And what does this lead us into? That there will be a time in which universal basic income makes its way. I do believe that universal basic income will somehow be tied in with the CBDC, central bank digital currency, and this will be offered to the public. You have to get your UBI through our new central bank digital currency. Here you go. There will be some unfortunate things that are, behind the scenes with this, but I think this is where it's happening. And this is why I talk about the two pillars of prosperity. You need to get your income in order, and you need to get your self-sufficiency in order. You can go in, completely in one direction or the other, or you can have both. This is so serious, and I just hope enough people will watch this message, will share this message with their family and friends so that we can get ahead of the game. We need to take advantage of what's happening here before it is too late. If you want some information about how we can leverage it, how we can use this, please let me know in the comments below. I will do an entire video about that. Please, you gotta let me know. This is the way it goes. I will see you tomorrow.